Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we will perform a comparison of Elastic Cache, which is an enterprise offering of Redis, versus Dragonfly Cloud, which is a managed Dragonfly solution, a built-in replacement for Redis. Also in this video, we will learn how Dragonfly has become a built-in replacement for Redis by utilizing the power of multi-threading and vertical scaling. Not only that, we will also perform a practical demonstration where I am going to show how to migrate from Elastic Cache. If you have an existing application that is running with Elastic Cache, I am going to show how can you migrate that application to use Dragonfly Cloud within no time. So this video is going to be very interesting. Please try to watch it till the end. So when you want to build a data intensive application, the obvious design choice that comes to your mind is to make use of a in-memory cache or an in-memory database. Why? Because your application can process the data from the memory instead of processing the data from the disk, which a traditional database would do. So by utilizing a in-memory data cache, your application can process much faster. And the traditional popular choice of developers has been Redis. Of course, if the organizations does not allow to use an open source offering of Redis because of the security reasons, or if the management is not interested in hosting or managing the infrastructure of Redis, they would suggest to go with an enterprise offering of Redis, such as Redis Enterprise or Elastic Cache provided by AWS. Now, while Redis or Elastic Cache are good, but you will realize issues with them when you start scaling your application. That means when your application has limited amount of data or small data, Redis or Elastic Cache can perform better. But as your application becomes more and more data intensive, you will realize scaling Elastic Cache becomes a bottleneck for your application. Why? There are a couple of reasons to it. Number one reason is the single core architecture of Redis. What does that mean? Elastic Cache, which is an offering of Redis, can only utilize a single core of the node. That means if your application wants to process data from Elastic Cache, it can only use a single operation, a single core to retrieve the data and give it back to your application. Now, if your application wants to process, or if it wants to perform multiple data operations, this single core architecture of Elastic Cache becomes a bottleneck for your application. Your application wants to retrieve more data, but Elastic Cache can only perform one operation after the other. Now you might say, but Abhishek, I can scale my Elastic Cache cluster. Now this is problem number two. You can definitely scale your Elastic Cache cluster horizontally by adding more and more nodes to your Elastic Cache cluster, but that will only add up to your issue, because whether it is a single node or whether it is multiple nodes, each node can only utilize a single core. By adding more and more nodes, you are underutilizing resources of each of the node of your Elastic Cache cluster. And to add to that, you are also signing up for more cost for your Elastic Cache cluster. Because as you keep scaling, as you add more and more nodes horizontally, AWS is going to charge you a lot. Now, Abhishek, what is the solution to it? This is where Dragonfly shines. What Dragonfly did here is it came up with two solutions. First, to address the single core architecture of Redis, Dragonfly has created a solution using the multi-threaded architecture. So by default, Dragonfly utilizes multi-threading concept, and it can utilize the complete resources of your underlying node or the underlying infrastructure. Second is that it relies on the power of vertical scaling first. A single instance of Dragonfly can scale up to 4 million QPS and 1 TB in memory. So compared to horizontal scaling, you can reduce the cost as well as management overhead. However, sometimes this might not be enough. So Dragonfly also supports cluster mode, which is an experimental feature. You can read more about Dragonfly cluster in the documentation. Now we will jump on to the demo where I will show you how to create a Dragonfly Cloud account. We are going to use Dragonfly Cloud, which is an offering of Dragonfly where you don't have to host Dragonfly on your machine. You can directly create a cloud account. It supports all the major cloud platforms such as AWS and GCP. And once you create an account on the Dragonfly, we will create a Dragonfly instance and we will migrate an existing Elastic Cache instance onto the Dragonfly. And I will also show you how to just switch your application from the Elastic Cache. If you have an application that is pointing to Elastic Cache, after migrating Elastic Cache to Dragonfly, I will show how easy it is to switch your application to Dragonfly Cloud within a few seconds. Now watch the demonstration till the end so that you can understand the migration of Elastic Cache to Dragonfly and also how to switch your application. So just search for Dragonfly Cloud on your browser and click on the first link that you see. So you will go to the Dragonfly Cloud landing page and you can also read about the cost difference. For example, you can see the comparison of a Dragonfly instance with Redis Enterprise and Elastic Cache. There is a drastic costing difference, and you can also read how it utilizes the power of vertical scaling. Now let's click on the login button. Creating an account is straightforward. You just need to use your Google accounts. I already have signed in with my Google account. So I'm here on the Dragonfly Cloud homepage. Now to create an instance, to create a data store, you can just click on add data store and you will realize how simple and straightforward it is. So you can either use AWS or GCP. Provide a name of your data store. Let me call it DF7, which is Dragonfly shortcut. DF7 demo, for instance. And you can choose one of the regions where you want to have your data store. Select one that is near to you. So I can go with AP South 1. And you can go with standard or enhanced depending upon your region. Let's say I go with US East 1, I get to use a standard feature. Then if you want to go with a standard security or enhanced security, for the purpose of demo, let me go with standard and I will leave all the options as default. Click on the review. So you can see the costing as well. It provides costing to you before even the creation. It explains how much it is going to cost. So it's going to be $112 per month. Click on create. So you can add your billing details. If you go to the settings, you can add your billing details. So the instance will be created in a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, what I will do, I will show you my existing Elastic Cache setup, and using a application, I will populate some data in the Elastic Cache. And what I am going to do is, once the data is populated in Elastic Cache, I will show you how to migrate that data to this Dragonfly instance. So this is my existing Elastic Cache setup on AWS. You can see if you go to Redis OSS cache. So I have a demo Elastic Cache instance, which I have created with multiple shards and multiple nodes. So I've used multiple replicas so that I can show you a real-time setup of Elastic Cache and how this multi-cluster setup of Elastic Cache can be converted to a single instance of Dragonfly. Okay, so I have all of them here. So you can see these are the multiple nodes and multiple shards. And I also have a simple Go application. So I can connect to my Elastic Cache to this through this EC2 instance, where I have a simple Go program. So this is write to Redis Go program. If you go to the app folder, you can see it's a main.go file, nothing more fancy than that, where if you go to the main file, you will notice that all that this main program does is it will just populate some dummy data onto the Elastic Cache. So I'm just creating some 100 key value pairs, username and the email address, and populating that to the Elastic Cache. I'll also put this program in the description. So if you also want to try through a demonstration, you can utilize this. Now, all that I'll do is run main.go. So it connects to the Elastic Cache. Of course, in the program, I need to provide Redis hosts. So this main.go file reads Redis host as an input, and through that, it will populate the data. So I will export the Redis hosts. These are the Redis hosts. What I'm doing is I'm trying to distribute the data. I'm populating 100 key value pairs. My goal is to distribute the key value pairs between the shards. So I have 3 shards here, and I will try to distribute 100 data fields between these 3 shards, probably 36, 36, and 28. Okay, so I'll just verify if this information is right. APS1, perfect. Okay, looks good. So let me run this command, and also let me export load data as true, which is one more input to my Go program. And now I will just run main.go. So you can see it's very fast because I'm just loading 100 key value pairs, and data load is basically complete. Let's verify if the data load is complete or not, because I want to show you post migration Dragonfly instance has this 100 data fields. So initially Elastic Cache should have these 100 data fields or the 100 key value pairs. So for that, what I'm going to do is I will use one more program that I have, which is read from Redis. So if we go into this, we have another main.go file where this main.go file will do the same thing, but read operation. So here I will just provide the basic details such as what is the URL, is TLS required or not, and some basic information such as the host name and the port. Instead of reading it or providing it as command line arguments, so we will use a config.yaml file. In the config.yaml file, we will provide each shard information. So let's take one node from the first shard and replace it. You can find this code in the GitHub repository that I provide in the link. If you also want to try the same demonstration, and the Redis port is 6379, which is correct. Perfect. I will leave the TLS as false because I have not enabled it. Now let's run go run main.go. So it says an invalid address because I have provided port name 2 times. So let's edit the config.yaml and make sure we remove the port name from the host. Let me clear the screen and run go run main.go. So the first shard has 28 key value pairs. Now let's look at the second one. I will again replace the config.yaml. Shouldn't take much time. Just replace your host name in the config YAML. You can also do it manually through the Redis CLI. If you don't want to use a Go program and you just want to test through the Redis CLI migration, Dragonfly also supports Redis CLI. So you can also do with that. Perfect. Now, if I run go main.go, again, I did not remove the port number. Now it has 36 entries. So overall, first shard has 28, second shard has 36. And let's see, the third shard also should have 36 entries. So overall, 100 key value pairs are populated. 100 usernames and email address are populated. Remove the port number, clear the screen and try it one more time. Perfect. 36, 36 and 28, which is 100. So our Elastic Cache cluster is working fine with shards and replicas. We also have replicas. You can try with the replicas as well. You will get the same data. Okay. Now, how about migrating this to the Dragonfly, right? So for that, we also need to verify that our Dragonfly instance is up and running. So it says Dragonfly instance is active, which is a good sign. Now we will perform the migration and then I will use the same Go program, read from Redis, just update the config.yaml with the Dragonfly instance address as well as the password. And we need to see that 100 data fields are updated to this Dragonfly instance. Right now it's empty. It does not have anything. We just created it. Perfect. So for that, we have a utility called Redis Shake. So this is the utility Redis Shake. So Redis Shake is basically used for migration of one Redis kind of utility to the other Redis kind of utility. Dragonfly also supports Redis Shake, or Redis Shake also supports Dragonfly. So we can make use of the same thing. So I've just cloned this Redis Shake GitHub repository and I have ran build.sh already. So I have Redis cache on this instance. So this is Redis cache. If you go to it, you will find the bin directory, and within the bin directory, you will have something called as Redis Shake utility. So all that you need to do is just run this command called /Redis Shake followed by the shake underscore dummy toml or toml file. Now what is this? Basically, you need to create a toml file for migration of one Redis instance to the other and update the configuration in the toml file or the toml file. Now the name can be anything, you can provide with any name, but make sure within this toml file, you provide the information appropriately, or or you need to provide the right information. So the first one you provide is the information of the Elastic Cache instance, and the second one is the information of your Dragonfly instance. Okay, so let me provide the address. And I don't have to touch any other fields because TLS is false, scan is true. Basically, there are two modes that Redis Shake supports. One is the scan reader, other is the sync. You can also use sync, but the problem is majority of the cloud providers does not support sync by default. You need to raise a support ticket to enable the sync mode. So instead of doing that, we can use the scan reader, which works perfectly fine. Now in the Redis writer, you need to provide the Dragonfly instance URL. Where can you get that? Just go to the Dragonfly, click on the data store that you have, and first you can get the host name here. This is your host URL. Paste it. Username is default. Password also you can get from this particular thing. Post this demo. I'm going to delete this Dragonfly instance. So it's okay that I have the username password here. And TLS is true because by default, Dragonfly comes with TLS enabled. So set the TLS as true. Now just run the command // Redis shake and whatever is the name of your toml file. Okay, so if you see here, it says missing port in the address. Let's see if we missed something. Yeah, so you can see here, I did not provide the port number, colon, and the default port of Dragonfly is basically 6385. So you need to use that. And now let me run the command one more time. So started syncing. You can see the sync is happening and it will perform operation. So it is basically reading all the 100 key value pairs that you have and it is writing to it. It will not take much time. We just need to wait for a minute or so and your migration is complete. So looks like the migration is complete. Now we can go back to our application and let's update the config.yaml and let's see if the Dragonfly instance is populated with the fields or not, or is it updated with the data or not. For that, what we will do is we will update the host name in the config.yaml. So this is the only change that you need to make in your application. If you want to switch from Elastic Cache to Dragonfly, I have configured it so that you can also do the same thing in your application rather than directly updating the source code. In the port, we will use 6385. We need to provide the password. So password is here. Let's use that. Just making sure the password is right. Perfect. And TLS needs to be set to true. Perfect. Now let me run the command go run main.go. So it said error loading config.yaml. True, there is some typo that I need to fix. That's fine. And if you run go run main.go, you can see number of objects in Redis is 100. So previously you have seen Elastic Cache shards, each having 36, 36, and 28 respectively. Whereas we have migrated to Dragonfly, which is a single instance, which relies on vertical scaling instead of horizontal scaling by default. You can see it has the 100 key value pairs or the complete data that was there in Redis. And I have also pointed my Go application now to Redis. So I can read data from it. I can read the username. I can read the email address. So this is how you can migrate from Elastic Cache to Dragonfly to utilize the power of vertical scaling and also make your caching solution cost efficient. Again, if I have to show you, Dragonfly Cloud is very cost effective when compared to Elastic Cache. It can reduce the cost drastically for you, and it can also improve the performance of your application. So I hope you found this video informative. Thank you so much for watching. See you all in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.